Andy Kunz, president of the U.S. High-Speed Rail Association, and this shot here is California, where it's all beginning in this country. They've moved forward with the votes and the appropriations, and a number of other things are falling into place, so that's an important first step for the whole country as we venture into this whole new transportation system. And there's the heroes that we are honoring who helped pass the vote and helped steer this forward and got it off the ground. It's usually a big new project like this for this country. The hardest part is getting the first step going and getting it moving. So anytime you see any of the California legislators or Federal Railroad leaders, US DOT leaders, please thank them for their vision and their tenacity and really pushing this. We started the association in 2009. Many of you have been with us since then. Many others are new to this, and as this grows and gets bigger and becomes more important for the country, I think there'll be more and more industries coming into it. We already now have members. We're a nonprofit association, and we have members from the various industries listed there: rail, engineering, construction, real estate, finance, renewable energy, and defense contracting. So there's a pretty big interest in this already, and it's, we've got a lot of exciting projects to build all across the country, so we look forward to everybody getting involved. We set out the association with a broad, bold vision for the country of a 17,000-mile national high-speed rail network, state-of-the-art dedicated track, advanced control systems, elegant multimodal train stations, 220-mile-an-hour electric train main lines, and then a whole network of support feeder lines, regional, intercity rail, and a lot of that would involve upgrading and fixing Amtrak and getting it up to better standards to be a feeder system into the national high-speed network. We also operate as a voice promoting high-speed rail and the many benefits that it offers the country. We operate on a national level. We get involved with Congress. We help position papers. We get on the media. We're always out and about. We help even from the high levels all the way to local grassroots, help try to get organizations launched and going and give them help and guidance to how to market this, how to sell it, how to promote all the benefits of it. We try to get on the media as much as possible. We have a variety of, I've been on all different types of shows, Bill Press Show, Fox, Weather Channel even, to just continue to tell the benefits, and because there's still a lot of confusion and a lot of information that's not really out there yet, so we just keep a constant push to get the information out. And then we offer forums such as this to bring people together for networking and business development and to help move some of these projects and teams forward. So we have some challenges, obviously, as something this big and this new for this country and this expensive. And some of the things we've tried to distill out are about 6 of the challenges that we face. All of them are, we can get over them. They're not insurmountable, but they are challenges that we all have to concentrate on and help keep pushing the barriers and move them forward. The first is that there's actually confusion of what high-speed rail is and what's high-speed, what's medium speed, what's a feeder train, and so just to sort of clarify some of that and how they all do work together and the importance of it is a good step. There's also a well-funded negative campaign against high-speed rail, which many of you have seen various aspects of that. There's a lack of dedicated funding source at the federal level. And there's a lack of broad support in Congress. So part of our effort is to bring members of Congress, bring them up to speed, why we need to do this as a country, how it benefits them and their districts and businesses across the country. And then the benefits are not always clearly articulated or consistent. And then there's also long lead times, which by the time you begin a project, it may be 8 to 10 years later before you're actually being able to ride the train, and people lose their attention span, and they start getting diverted onto other things, and they keep saying, well, where is it? So some of those are some of the issues that we're looking at in different ways to get the information out there. We're working on this as a high-speed rail TV series that we're working on to help deliver that kind of information and get it out to the masses and the broad views. We've also are offering this trip to Europe as a way to raise money and raise awareness for high-speed rail and to get them to Europe to ride the high-speed train. And then we're looking into launching a PR campaign such as this. They did this in the UK. You'll hear a little bit more about this. I believe it's tomorrow's lunch with a bus and traveling around and just informing people, giving them information, and getting people enthusiastic and excited about this. So this is our map that we launched when we launched the association, and It's definitely bold, but we feel that it's definitely something that can be done here. It's already being done in other countries. We already did this with our interstate highway system. We already built very similar scale and distances and infrastructure. We've done the same thing with our transcontinental rail network. And then we look at Europe, and they're already doing the same thing as well. So there's the full build out, and what this is each phase is starting with the dense corridors, the biggest cities, beginning there and building from one city to the next city. So it's an incremental over time, and then a full build out would be a complete national system. And this is designed to be the least amount of miles that we have to build to save money, but to get the most connections each step of the way, each of the phases. And the estimated cost of this is about $600 billion, and at a 20-year build-out, that's about $30 billion a year. Well, we already spend more than that on transportation now, and we spend more than that on a lot of other things that probably would be wiser to put into this. So, and we've been working with private investment as well to come into this to help speed it up and get the process going a lot faster. And we're looking at that there's very good investment opportunities in this, from the rail operations to the real estate development around the stations. And so we have a lot of real estate developers interested in this, and you'll see several presentations during this conference from real estate developers who are already very successful in these realms and making good money doing it, and creating very desirable places where there's mixed uses and high densities and all that at a rail station. And we're looking for it to be publicly owned infrastructure, but it could be privately or publicly owned operations. And by separating those two, it works better as Europe is working out now, and Italy, we'll talk about that in a minute. There's a number of examples where this is already moving forward and pretty successful. And of course, the best thing about it is not only will it give us a great new transportation form, but it will also create millions of jobs, which we really need right now. And all avenues, from high-level engineering, design, construction, all the way down to train maintenance and operations. And then you look at all manufacturing. We could revive our whole manufacturing industry all around the country, our steel industry. And then beyond that, all the real estate development and the retail, and it just keeps on going, is how many jobs would actually come from this as it gets built out. And as a comparison, we've had some people say to us, well, America's so big, you can't run rail across that. Well, if you compare Europe and what's already being built now all over Europe, and there's about 8 countries that are already connected into a comprehensive rail network, and you put that side by side with the United States at the same scale, and you kind of look at a red sort of a giant X of where the rail lines now run in Europe, and you lay that over the United States, you see it covers half the United States. So we do 2 of those, and we have, the full national system. And then a quick review of some of the countries. Spain is building a lot of miles of high-speed rail. I think they've got about 5 new lines open now. Great system, state-of-the-art all around. There's the French system, which was one of the first in Europe. Now connecting, you'll be seeing a presentation during this conference of it's now connecting with the Spanish system. So that's the giant network crisscrossing borders. And then Saudi Arabia is building high-speed rail. That should be kind of an eye-opener for us. And they're, where the world's oil supply is, and they're building high-speed rail to save oil. So that may be a good one for us to really pay attention to. And then again, looking at that at the scale of the United States, it would cover from Chicago to Florida and from the Northeast Corridor down into Mississippi of the scale that they're going to be building. And this is, China's really showing the world how fast these can be built. They built this line from Beijing to Shanghai, which is longer than almost the entire state of California, or the equivalent of Boston down into North Carolina, and they built that in about 4 years. Now, I know we can't do it that fast here because we have to debate these things and we have a democracy, but we can certainly get the process going a lot faster than we've been doing, and it's just getting started. This is the Italian system. You'll be hearing more about this. This is the first for-profit company from the ground up to run high-speed trains. They brought a whole new fleet of trains. You'll be hearing more about that from Alstom. They're going to run all over. I think they're already running most of the cities in Italy, services every half hour throughout the whole country, and it's a state-of-the-art system, and that's a for-profit company. So that's an interesting example for us. High-speed rail is also being invested in numerous countries all over the world. You can see the list there: Argentina, Brazil, India, Morocco, Poland, Portugal, Russia, Africa, Saudi Arabia. There's even a few more that we have to update this with that are now moving forward with high-speed rail. And then there's the California system, which will be the big one in the United States. So we have the two coasts will be in a way in a competition: the East Coast, the Northeast Corridor upgrade, and then the California, the whole new system. So they're similar scale. There's also groups working on building from Dallas to Houston, a privately led group with the Japanese involved. That's an interesting one. And then there you can see the first line in France at the same scale as the first line that Texas would show, almost identical. Good place to start in the Southwest. And then, of course, Florida, we say that project is on hold. It's not dead. It will come back. It's already ready to go to construction. So when we get a new governor in there, we can go right back and get that project moving again. And then you can see on the right a full build out of what it would look like. The left map was just the first phase, Orlando, Tampa, but then all the way connecting to Miami and north and down the West Coast as well. You'll be hearing from some people on the Midwest area, and this was the governor at one of our previous conferences talking about moving forward with a 220-mile-an-hour network in the whole Chicago region. Very interesting. He had University of Illinois got involved in that. This was one of the reports that were put out from the Midwest High-Speed Rail Association and Siemens to study the economic impacts of high-speed rail that it will do for the entire Midwest region, which was just huge impacts, huge results from a moderate investment would return quite a bit more in terms of jobs and economic development. And this was another study from the U.S. Conference of Mayors. Again, billions of dollars in benefits, millions of jobs. And they looked at 4 different cities in different settings to compare. And some of the literature from some of these things are in your bags. This was a study by the UK industry when they were looking at high-speed 2, which they now have high-speed 1 going from London to the tunnel. High-speed 2 will go from London to the north to cover all the northern cities. And what this showed is that when it goes above 150 miles an hour, the lines actually make money. They make a profit. And so their conclusion was that it made more sense to invest the bigger money and do the faster trains to get a return from the entire investment. And another indication here, this is International Business Times, America's Broken, 5 Ways to Fix the Nation. Number 1, Federal Infrastructure Bank, and number 2, high-speed rail. We show this slide to just tell people this is not your grandfather's train we're talking about. These are modern, sleek, state-of-the-art. These are a whole new generation of rail for America and the world, and so it's something that everybody really would want to get on board with. So then you would say, well, why do we need high-speed rail? So we kind of looked at it and says, well, there's really 5 serious problems that the nation and the rest of the world faces as well. It's worse here because we're more car dependent. And energy security and independence is a major crisis that we haven't quite seen it yet, but it's creeping up, and the prices of oil keep creeping up, and so that's going to really hit us hard because all of our transportation is highly oil dependent. Climate change, mobility paralysis, failing economy and international competitiveness, and crumbling infrastructure. So transportation is at the root of all 5 of these, and high-speed rail can be the solution to all 5 of them at once. So that's really a bargain of a century if you can solve 5 problems with a single investment. And then with climate change, it's been debated for many years. There's still people debating it, but I think the Hurricane Sandy kind of changed that when it hit New York, which is not normally hit by hurricanes, and the type of damage that was done, and you'll be hearing a little more about that in another session. And so what we say, really, the climate debate's now officially over. So now that we can acknowledge that, we really have to focus on dealing with it. And high-speed rail and all forms of electric rail are really the major solution to this. And the quote we put in here, high-speed rail is a large-scale, comprehensive solution to both climate change and the coming energy crisis. And you know, a lot of people say, well, how come this isn't, a serious issue? Why isn't all of Congress focused on this and the White House and everybody else? Well, there has been a flood of books that have come out just in the last 5 or 6 years, all from industry people in the oil industry saying we face a crisis. We need to start paying attention. And it's pretty serious. And so we need to really kind of move into rail pretty quickly because there is sort of a deadline and a timeline we have to kind of stay ahead of. And this is the timeline here. This is the global oil supply in the world, and we're right at the peak. And many people say, geologists have said we're already going over the peak, and the supplies will begin to taper off over time. And with oil demand going up and supply tapering off, that's when you get the price spikes and shortages. And so we want to kind of avoid that situation and not get into the weeds and then try to deal with it. And American oil consumption is very wasteful compared to other countries. We have only 5% of the world's population, yet we consume 25% of the world's energy. And we consume 20 million barrels of oil every day in America, and 70% of it's just for transportation. So you can see how you can really have a big impact by building a major high-speed rail system and really reducing the amount of oil we use just in our daily lives to move around. We use about 6 times more oil per person in America than, say, a typical person who lives in Western Europe. And some might argue that they actually have a better standard of living because they can move quickly to their destination and not be sitting stuck in airports and stuck on highways. And so, that's something to look at. And then, in general, oil consumption in America, this is how we move around on the left. Very high oil-consuming forms of transportation. And then, in general, if you look at Europe, a lot of the transportation takes place in trains, electric trains that are powered not by oil. So when you compare those two, it's quite a difference. And then here's looking at each mode in energy consumption per mode in BTUs per passenger mile. Airplanes are by far the highest, 10,300 BTUs. Automobiles are about 3,500 BTUs. Bus about 4,000, which is a little higher than cars because a lot of times they're not full. And then high-speed trains way down at the bottom, 270 BTUs. Huge difference from flying versus riding in a high-speed train. So that's, as we can move more and more people from the airplanes and cars into high-speed trains, we begin to get more efficient as a nation. And then, comparing not only the energy consumption, but our time and our aggravation. And this is just a fun comparison of an American going on a trip across the top in America using American transportation and a European going on a trip across the bottom using European transportation, which is mostly trains. You can see the American's stuck in traffic trying to get to the airport. European has already arrived at the rail station, boarding the train. Now the American is stuck in a huge security line at the airport while the train is already speeding away in Europe. And then next you can see the American is now stuck on the runway, backed up, waiting, to take off while the train has already arrived at its destination. And then here the American coming home late into the night. It's already dark and the kids are in bed and everything, while the European's already been home relaxing in a cafe or back with the family and everything. And that's not an exaggeration. That really is what we deal with on a day-to-day basis all over America. So there's lots of benefits that we can get from this. And overall productivity of high-speed rail is pretty amazing. It's the most business-friendly form of transportation possible. There's fast boarding, no delays and hassles, no downtime. You can be using your phone, your laptop almost the whole way. You can almost literally carry your laptop in open in the middle of a file. You can purchase tickets on short notice. You can change plans without huge penalties. Shorter total trip times. You can get to your destination to a meeting and back all in the same day. You don't have to stay overnight and make a big deal about it. And there's direct connections right into the cities. And there's also many times connections right into smaller cities, which, the train may stop there on the way to a bigger city, whereas an airplane, you'd have to fly to the big city and then get another plane to go to the small city. So in terms of all the door-to-door and all the use, it's much more business-friendly. And then overall productivity of rail is just far more productive in its ability to move people quickly, large numbers of people quickly and efficiently without delay. For example, a fully loaded 6-car train can substitute for nearly 100 city blocks of moving cars. And more than likely, the train is zipping along and the cars are all bumper to bumper, barely moving. A single subway line can deliver 60 to 80,000 people per hour per track, whereas a superhighway can only deliver about 2,400 cars per lane. And that's actually even high. If it's typical rush hour conditions, that number falls in much smaller than that. So we kind of look at the bigger picture is that we really, to kind of move this nation forward and get us out of the situation we're in and move us to a greener, brighter, more business-friendly, more economically positive situation, we really need to invest in a major scale-up of renewable energy, a major scale-up of electric transportation in the form of trains, and then a major scale-up of walkable urbanism at the train station. And most of these things are already happening, but what we want to try to do is get them all moving faster and coordinate them all. And so we've been focusing on the rail part of that, and then even the rail part, we'd say there's really three-tiered rail systems that we need. So you've got the national scale, the high-speed systems, the big scale, long distances, or even the regional scale. Then as you get into the city regions, you have metro systems and regional trains, so that's the second tier, and then the third tier is actually at the city scale, streetcars, trams, and so when you have all three of those together and you can move seamlessly through from one to the other, you really have a very efficient, very easy, very quick transportation system. And so kind of the final thing I say is that, we're really calling for a big transformation of this country and transforming what we've been used to and backed up planes on the runways to fast trains moving. So that's transforming at the national scale. Then the same thing at the regional scale, transforming this scenario, which is all over America, everywhere you go, into, again, fast trains and people getting to their destination. And then at the local scale, transforming the neighborhoods, again, which is solid cars everywhere, to clearing out some of the cars, making more pedestrian-friendly places, and then having trains come in and out from the underneath or around the edges, and then you have a completely transformed city, and then finally transforming the people from being whacked out, stressed out all the time, and to relaxing, and see you can just sit back and close your eyes or have a conversation with somebody. And so then the final thing it really involves is redefining what transportation is and efficient transportation in America. And here you can see a number of different forms of it at the different scales, all the way down to even the local scale, walking and bicycling, which is a very viable form of transportation if you build the cities for that and you take some of the cars out and focus on that. And so you get all the hierarchy of it. So really the final thing is, since we have a lot of industries that produce a lot of the things that we want to sort of move away from and move towards the greener things, looking at transforming some of our industries. So, for example, airplane manufacturing could peel off a couple of factories and begin building wind turbines, for example. Car plants can build rail trains right in the same plants, the same assembly lines. And then several other scales, even defense contractors, many of them are already moving into renewable energy and services for systems such as this. And then even car parts manufacturing can transform into producing bicycles, for example. And so we want everyone involved and to move into new industries. Road builders can move into train infrastructure, which is very similar, a lot of the same stuff. And then developers who build sprawl, moving into more building cities and things at rail stations. And most of these things are already happening, again, as we want to kind of get everyone moving and give us sort of a roadmap and a focus on this. So with that concludes my presentation, and we want to invite everybody who's not already a member to join the association. Thank you very much.